can start anytime you'd like.
So we were about that the Germans ordered that that the Jews nominate a Oberjude, a chief Jew, and it should be done in a matter of days. So on the 4th of August 1941, the activists of the Jewish community in Kovno called an assembly, which was the last assembly of the Jewish community in Kovno, at the 4th of August 1941 at a school, and on the agenda was election of a Oberjude, and this was the most dramatic and the most historic assembly in the history of Jews in Lithuania. Headed the assembly was the veteran community leader Dr. Grigory Wolf, and he introduced the people with the situation that it was never such a horrible situation, that Jews are being killed in the streets, that in masses being dragged from the houses and stores to the prisons or to the forts. Jewish women are being publicly raped in front of their husbands and so far, and that it is a situation that we are on brink of perdition. Never was such a situation in Kovno, and in this situation we are called to elect. They say nominate, but we say we will elect not an Oberjude, not a chief Jew, but the head of the Jewish community. And nobody of the assembled, and there were dignitaries, people who were members of parliament, of the Lithuanian parliament, of heads of Jewish institutions, long-standing community leaders. Not one of them wanted to get the nomination of an Oberjude, because we had already the experience at that day of the Jewish Oberjude for Vilna, Dr. Vygotsky, who was a community leader of high standing, and he didn't want to fulfill the tasks, to be a tool in the hands of the Germans, and he committed suicide. So not one, and there was a stalemate at the assembly. So then stood up Rabbi Schmuckler, a unknown rabbi at that time from a suburb of Shansi, and he stood up and he said everybody wanted Dr. Elkes to be to be head of the community, but he didn't want to do it because he said he had no municipal experience. He had no experience. He's a physician all his lifetime, and he would not take the responsibility for leadership of a community, which the Germans said it would be a municipality in the ghetto, that the Jews will be able to manage their own things. But nevertheless, he said he has never had the experience of a municipal tradition. But everybody thought that Dr. Elkes would be the most appropriate because of his being the private physician of the German ambassador, like of many other ambassadors, and we thought that this relationship, special relationship between Dr. Elkes as a private physician of the German ambassador would be helpful in perhaps making certain verdicts or certain edicts more humane. Of course, it turned out as we all know, but Dr. Elkes flatly refused to become the Oberjude, and then said Rabbi Schmuckler, for whom you will be an Oberjude? For us, you will be the respected head of the Jewish community, Rosh HaKa'al, and you will, with God's help, will all go with you end in end. And the Shlichei Mitzvah einam nizokim. those who are going in a mission of mitzvah can never be hurt. And with God's help, we'll go with you. You will lead us and bring us out from the ghetto, which is a galut within galut. And will bring us to the home of our ancestors in Eretz Israel, and the spirit in the whole was such tension and hopelessness that the people just expected that the deadlock that came should some come out. And then after the speech, the most moving speech of Rabbi Shmukler, everybody was in tears. And then stood up Dr. Elkes and he said, if you all think that it must be I am here, I am here. It means I am the victim. This is exactly the very, and this is exactly what we assumed it is. And then there was a relief, and each one stood up and shook hands with Dr. Elkes and greeted him and wished him. And then 3 young lawyers, Dr. Bernstein, Kaplan, and myself, stood up and we went to Dr. Elkes and we told him we are young lawyers, and now we place ourselves to your disposition, and will be at any time whatever you may think we can do, we'll do, and we'll go. We are to your service. And he thanked us very much, and he was pale like the wall. He was very much moved, but everybody was sure that here is a man that placed himself to the disposal of the devil, actually. And then his deputy was elected, Garfunkel, who was a member of the parliament, and Koppelman was elected as the chief of the police. Now this was the first meeting with Dr. Elkes. The next day, and then from that day on, he already used to come to the offices of the commission for the transfer, committee for the transfer of Jews to the ghetto, which was in the municipality building 4 or 5 kilometers, let's say 3 miles away from Dr. Elkes' house at the Kestucha Street. And a day after, one of the 3 lawyers of us that we volunteered to act, he was killed on the streets while going from his home to the Elimelech Kaplan. And then there also 1,000 men were killed in one day in the street of the 6th of August. It means 2 days after the election. And also the famous community leader Shapiro, Tuvia Shapiro, also was killed. And we were very much impressed and we were scared of what's going on. So when Dr. Elkes, when he finished the work, the day he worked in the community, in the committee for the transfer, I felt I cannot let Dr. Elkes go himself to his home, because something can happen at the streets, because the Lithuanian department didn't make any distinction, Dr. Elkes or not Dr. Elkes, a Jew. So I offered him to accompany, to escort him to his home, which is under no circumstances. It's dangerous. Go to your home, go to you. I said, Dr. Elkes, I'm a sportsman and I will escort you to your home. You are now the chairman of the committee. I'm one of the secretaries, and I'm even duty bound to accompany you. But he didn't want. I nevertheless escorted him. And I came, I thought if something happens, I could signal to Koppelman or to Garfunkel something to do if something happens that the partisans take under arrest Dr. Elkes. And luckily we came to the home of Dr. Elkes, and there we saw on the sidewalk stood a truck with German Wehrmacht officers and soldiers. So Dr. Elkes told me, thank you very much, you can go. I said, no, I don't like this truck. I want to go up and see what is in your apartment. And we went up on the second floor, I think it was, or on the third floor, on the second floor, the apartment of your parents. And there we saw German high officers are going around the walls and looking on the paintings, in the vitrinas, the vases of crystal and so on. And Dr. Elkes, in his wisdom, I couldn't understand, but later I understood. He went and says to the officer, mein Herr, gentleman, or the officer, you like this painting? Take it. You like this vase? Please have it. You like this set of porcelain? Have it, take it. And we didn't have to say twice. Then he ordered me I should take it and I should bring it down to the truck. And so I went up and down, brought the paintings, all kinds. They took all the best things out of the apartment. And then, when I went down the last time, Dr. Elkes accompanied me. And they asked them to let me go home. So they said, no, I should mount the truck and accompany them to their place where the Germans had their apartments, and I should reload, from the truck to their apartments. And it didn't help. Elkes said he has a wife and he has a family, let him go. He worked all the day, he's the secretary of the committee, nothing. Anyhow, I went and until I went with the truck with the officers to their apartment, took it off, and I asked them they should give me a certificate that I worked that day for them so I can have a free passage to my home, that the Lithuanian partisans should not take me under arrest, but I didn't. So anyway, I came safe home and I called immediately Dr. Elkes and said, thank you, thanks God, I am back home. And your mother was so nervous and she was so upset that because of them I had to go into that trouble. Anyhow, this was the first
time that you met.
That I met, and I made acquaintance in a certain very symptomatic, special circumstances of that time.
Yes.
And ever since I used to meet him every day in the council.
Yes. Yes.
And then I used to write the diary, and next day I used to give to Dr. Elkes to read it. Now, I knew of all his encounters, meetings. Well, there was the first time, 3 days after we went into the ghetto the 15th of August. On the 18th of August, they ordered that 500 academicians, doctors, they worked for them in the archive. So instead of 500, came 534. And the very same day, they took them out from the ghetto and they killed them. Dr. Elkes didn't let one stone unturned. And he went to Jordan, who was the mass murderer from the Stadtkommissariat. He went to the chief of Gestapo, and he insisted that he, as chairman of the Jewish committee, must know where are these 534 who didn't come. They took them from the ghetto for archives for one day, and they didn't come back. And for weeks and weeks, he went from one top Gestapo officer to the other until he came to the chief of the Gestapo, Jäger, and they told him always tomorrow, day after tomorrow will come, and they never came, and until they said that the Jews made the sabotage. They worked with sugar, and they put the gasoline into the sugar. That's why they were killed. This was the first encounter. And then the second one was that in the ghetto there were two gynecologists, Dr. Nabrisky, who was the head of the gynecology department in the hospital of the ghetto, and Dr. Dr. Broshin, both succeeded in escaping from the ghetto, and they found some hiding in this city. But you know, not all the Lithuanians were keen, and they to cut a long story short, the Lithuanians disclosed them to the Gestapo, and they were arrested. And then Dr. Helke started his emergency actions in all directions, as I said before. And then he came to the chief of the Gestapo, Jäger, and they told him, they arrested the two Jews, the two doctors, and they arrested also the Lithuanian who gave them refuge. And he went to the chief of Gestapo and he told them, these are the two doctors that are mostly needed in the ghetto, because there is an order from Gestapo that pregnancy should be forbidden, is prohibited, and they exactly had to act as gynecologists to cut off and make abortions. And they are so needed in order to comply with the order of Gestapo. This is what he influenced the Gestapo, because they needed, not because they are doctors to the good of the inmates of the ghetto, because to fulfill the order of Gestapo that prohibited pregnancy. And he says, I assure you, this was one time people in stress, and they said, all right, they should go. First of all, said Dr. Dabriska should go. He said, he himself wouldn't do. There are 30,000 people in the ghetto. They needed the washing too. All right, and so when they stood up, Jäger, and they thought they finished with him. So Dr. Helke says, no, Herr Chef, I have another. I cannot leave you before I'll ask you also for the release of the Lithuanian. The Lithuanian who was held. What have you to do with the Lithuanian? You are a Jew. The Lithuanian didn't take any money, and they have done it from humanitarian grounds. And it would be for us a permanent blow, a moral blow on the whole Jewish community, that a Lithuanian who gave refuge to Jews from the ghetto should be arrested or should be executed because of the Jews. And he influenced the chief of the Gestapo, Jäger, Hauptsturmbannführer Jäger. You see, and they say, nah, good. Haben Sie, here you have him also. Let him out. So the Lithuanian went on. The Lithuanian then came to Dr. Helkes and they kissed his hands and his feet, but Dr. Helkes didn't allow him to do so. But all the Lithuanians in the city spoke about it, or that a Jew in the ghetto brought about the release of a Lithuanian who came. This was a most remarkable and another very important day, terrible day, the selection of 10,000 people out of the ghetto on the 28th of October. First of all, Dr. Helkes didn't want, as I said before, Dr. Helkes didn't want to publish the announcement that Jews, the inmates, should report on the Demokratenplatz on the 28th of October. Because the people will understand that the Jews, the Jewish committee, he is guilty of what may happen that we didn't know what is going to happen on the 28th. But nevertheless, it must not be, shouldn't be a very good thing. So then Dr. Helkes and others decided I should go and ask the chief rabbi of Kovno, and then went Garfunkel, and went Hirsch Levin and myself. And we waked the chief rabbi late in the evening, approximately at 10 o'clock, it was too late in the evening, there was a curfew in the ghetto. And when we came to the, Rabbi Schmuckler went with us, not Hirsch Levin, but Rabbi Schmuckler, the one who asked Dr. Elkes, and we came, and she is a rabbi, and we told him what is it about, and he said, is the Jewish committee, should the Jewish committee publish this order? And we already elaborated a formula saying that the Jewish committee announces the order of the Gestapo that was given by the Gestapo, and not in the name of the committee, but nevertheless it was not still. So the rabbi was vacant, he was an old man, and a sick man, he was in bed. So he said, I have to think about it, come next morning. And when we came to next morning, it was not yet ready. It was old books of Talmud and so on, what we looked around. And they told us to come at 10 o'clock in the morning. And at 11, to cut a long story short, in the very end, he came to the conclusion, and he said, he found that there was, it's too short a time to cut a long story short. He said, if a community, a Jewish community, is in danger, and there is a possibility that part of the community can be rescued, can be part of the community, and not all the community, the Jewish leadership is bound to do everything in order to rescue the part. And that's why he says that in his opinion the Jewish committee should publish the order, more so that it says clearly that they are publishing the order of Gestapo that the Jews should report on. This was a great thing. And then when on the 28th of October at 6 o'clock, when there was the march, the march, I write in my diary, in my opinion, it was the march, a funeral that the victims are themselves participating in their own funeral. This is how it looked like. Morning, 6 o'clock, it was dark. And Dr. Elke stood, Rauka stood on some hill, and they looked around and could see all the scene, and with his finger he sniffed at left, right. Jews were sure that the right is the good side. So they turned to the right, and they even sometimes say thank you deeply for your graciousness. And to the left was the good side. He stood up, and Dr. Elke stood close, not far away from him. And when there was a special hardship for a family to be torn apart, or some, for instance, there was a man like Balosher, who was a veteran Zionist leader and so on. So he asked, this man is needed, we need a carpenter for the building of the airport and so on. And he could rescue maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe 20. But he stood on his legs. He didn't sit down. We brought him a chair. He didn't sit down. It's a terrible thing that why did I have to live up over this to see this scene? And all the day long, from 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 in the evening, when everything was gone and 10,000 were taken out of the election, of the selection. And this was a greatness of a man who could stood in the hardest day of the ghetto, and he tried to do his utmost to rescue what we could. Then there was another...
Then, if I may just ask you, then he went to the small ghetto and tried to rescue 100 people too, and then he was beaten.
At night, people came to his home and said, my wife was taken, my husband was taken, my son was taken. So he didn't rest, and he asked Koppelman to go to Rauka and ask him to get a permission to go into this small part of the ghetto where the 10,000 were concentrated, and with permission to take on very hard cases.
Yeah.
And he had the permission, so he went the next morning to that small ghetto. He and we escorted him, Koppelman and myself, but we were not allowed to go to pass the small ghetto, only himself.
Yeah.
And when only he went into the mess, they were all already in rows on their way to the ninth fortress, which is the fortress of death, where they were finally executed. And when they saw Dr. Elkes, one took him by his sleeve, the other one took him by his coat, and the third one took him by his head. Ratevet, rescuers, Dr. Elkes. He had the list of the people, but then the Lithuanian partisans who escorted these groups of hundreds, they didn't let him, and they told him that he should leave immediately. There was a disorder of all the march, was a disorder, and they told him that you should get out, otherwise they'll take him to the ninth fortress, but he didn't move. So they hit him on the head, and he fell and fainted. And then we ran back from the other side of the ghetto, and we took him to a closed home on the other side, and there he stayed for 2 days because he
was bleeding, wasn't he?
was terribly beaten in blood, and it was a terrible situation. And to the great mourning of 10,000 victims, we had thought that Dr. Elkes, God forbid, should not come up on his feet again and go on with the leadership. Another one was?
Yes, but you may want to talk about other conversations too, with particularly with Goeke.
Yes. Now, when the ghetto was about to be liquidated, Elkes always tried to talk, first of all, with Geiling. There was a General Geiling who was the head of the greatest slave work site, the building of a military airport at Alexandria. 5,000 Jews from the ghetto went day in, day out, 24 hours a day there, and there was a terrible, terrible situation for the people. Slavery work, people couldn't stand it, and it was the head of this big enterprise construction was a General Geiling, to whom Dr. Elkes went. He finally, Dr. Geiling respected very high Dr. Elkes, and from time to time he used to get to release a group, not only one, a group of people, and he said, I'll send the employees from our Jewish committee to replace them, so they cannot work all the time. And this relationship was also a special relationship with Arman, the German director of the labor exchange into the ghetto. He was an SA man, and he was not an Hitler man. And he used to speak with Elkes in private, come to him at home and tell him, listen, Dr. Elkes, don't do this, don't do that, or they are expecting so. And this was the man that we wrote after the war letters to the German court that they should not sue him. And finally he had he dared to talk to a chief of the Gestapo, or to a chief of the Stadtkommissariat, or to a chief of any chief of the Germans. And he dared. This was his strength. He said, I have my over 65 years behind me, and nothing can happen to me. He kept in his small pocket always Siankali poison, and he said, if worse comes to worse, I will not fall in their hands, and I'll take poison in the last moment. And this is exactly what happened. It could have happened when they took the Elterstadt and the ninth fortress. Before the liquidation of the ghetto, the Germans arrested all the members of the Ältestenrat, and they brought them at the Ninth Fortress. It was in July 1944. And Dr. Elkes was released immediately the first, but he didn't want to be released until Garfunkel and Goldberg and Lucy Lavon and the others be released. But it didn't help. They took him out. But when they let him go, when they brought him back into the ghetto, he immediately went to the chief of Gestapo Jäger and he said, Herr Commandant, please, I warn you. This is what he said, Herr Commandant, I warn you, Garfunkel, my assistant, my deputy, and Goldberg, the member of the Ältestenrat, I gave them portions of poison. Before they went to the Ninth Fortress, he took his portion of poison and left one part for himself, one part he gave Garfunkel and one part and Goldberg, and he said, if they will torture you, you have the way out. And he said, I am afraid when they'll continue torturing them on the Ninth Fortress, my closest friend, the most respected former member of parliament, Garfunkel, can commit suicide. And you have to rescue him, you cannot keep him there. Or I'll commit suicide here at your place. And this is how he got the release of Garfunkel and of Goldberg, and all of the rest. This is, and then before the liquidation, he had a dare to speak to Goethe. Goethe was a mass murderer. He was the liquidator of many ghettos in Poland. And when he came to the ghetto Kovno, first of all, he converted it to a concentration camp. And then he actually took all the rights and all what the ghetto community had to do, the committee of the ghetto was absolutely powerless. They had no right to do anything. They were not permitted anymore to have contacts with the civil authorities. And then it went to, and they had and here the Red Army was already come closer every day to Lithuania, and it was expected that every day they might come to Kovno, but Goethe had an order that he should, the remnants of the ghetto, approximately 7,000 Jews, they should be transferred to Dachau, to the concentration camp in Germany. Dr. Elkes approached Goethe not more than not less and tells him, Herr Commandant, you know, like I know, that the Germans lost the war. It's now only a matter of days or weeks. You can save your own honor and your own life by postponing the transfer of the remnants of the ghetto Kovno to Germany for days. And this will be not a rescue of your own life and your own honor, but this will be also a gesture for your people, for your German people. And we will see to it that after the war you will not be brought to punishment and so on. There was not any single man, not in the Kovno ghetto, not in any other ghetto in Lithuania or in Poland, that dare speak to a liquidator of the ghetto the way he spoke, because they could just with one finger on his bayonet, he could kill him. But it is there. And then he said to him, for the first time, a German approached a Jew saying, Herr, Mr. Dr. Elkes, I understand you well, but I know, I agree that we lost the war, but I am a German officer, and I'm duty-bound to fulfill orders. And may happen what happened, I must fulfill my task. But I'll see to it that you be brought in a special train. This is secondary, but the very approach of Dr. Elkes showed only of a very moral strength that not one in any Jewish community of the ghetto dared. And that's why Dr. Elkes is the only Jewish leader whose name was praised after the liberation by the first Zionist World Congress in Basel that convened in December 1946. I was president of the Congress, and it was for me a very great honor to hear from the podium of the World Congress that was dedicated totally to the Holocaust, that Dr. Elkes was the only one of Jewish leaders of the ghetto that he was praised for his behavior, for his courage, for all what he has done and for what he stood for. Now there was also, I must, before ending, I must say my last meeting with Dr. Elkes at the tiny house of Miriam and Dr. Elkes in the ghetto before my escape from the ghetto. It happened so that unexpected at all, I had to escape from the ghetto, and Pnina, my present wife, arranged it without even telling me. And when I got word that a wagon will come to take me out from Kovno to a farm 54 kilometers far away, of course I came to Dr. Elkes and I told him this, and we sat at his home from, let's say, 8 in the evening. There was present Dr. Elkes and Miriam Elkes and Garfunkel, the very high respected deputy, and they were great friends. And when I told them about my plans to go, to run away from the ghetto, which was, as I said before, already concentration camp, they said, Garfunkel said, "Oh, what do you think? It's a concentration camp. How will you go out? We'll let you out. They'll kill you on the moment when any part of the barbed wire you'll try to squeeze through, they'll kill you." And we had the example of Mack that was hanged public in the ghetto when he was caught. Don't do it. You are going to do a suicide. It's absolutely suicide. I beg of you, you have a wife, you have a family, don't do it. This was the approach of Garfunkel. And it was characteristic to his character. This was exactly as he felt and he thought. Very, very honest man, very great friend of mine, a great friend of Dr. Elkes. And then Dr. Elkes says, Golub, my name was Golub. He took me in his hand and he says, Golub, if you would be my son, I would tell you go. Because you are the only one who know better than anybody else in the ghetto what expired in the ghetto. Because you have written a diary, day in, day out. And I know each entry of your diary, which you read before me every morning, what you have written the previous night. And this has to be to reach the outer world. So your escape is a mission. And I am sure, I know you, I know your courage, and I believe, and I'm sure you will succeed in escaping from the ghetto. And in the last moment, he took out from his drawer a letter which was the last will to his children, Joel and Sarah Elkes in London, and he gave it to me, and he says, this, I'm sure you'll succeed in your mission, and you'll hand over this, my last will and testament, to my son and to my daughter, and they should have from you, oh intimate friend, the first hand information of what expired, when I wrote this, my last letter, and what is there. Nothing could encourage me more to dare and to escape from the ghetto. When I left at 2:30 at midnight, after embracing Dr. Elkes and kissing Miriam Melkes, and Miriam Melkes looked at me and she listened to Dr. Elkes, and she didn't say a word, but her eyes said everything.
Yes.